What's up, APUSH students? My name is Mr. Harimatsu. I'm coming with you with another video lesson. This time we're going to go ahead and take a look at our period project. All the information for the period projects are under tips, tricks, and resources. And I guess one thing we should probably refer to real quickly is the period project will be based off of these terms on the very top of each of our syllabus. So here I'm going to show you the period 1 and 2 syllabus. And on period 1 and 2, you'll notice that you'll have a bunch of terms. And these terms are what we're going to use to go ahead and create our period project. You'll notice that as we move into the most important periods, which again, you should know by now are period 3 through 8, you'll notice that some are bolded. These are for some of these, what I call kind of more extensive projects. These ones are a little bit longer, and I'll talk about that in a second. But these, in this case, if you come and talk to me and talk and just kind of describe your project, I kind of find it's takes a lot of time. A lot of times this has to do with like video editing projects. It takes a lot of time to create a script, to edit the project, to go through multiple drafts. And so I'll have you focus on what I think are the most crucial key concepts or key terms for your project. For most of us, I'd say 90 to 95% of us, we're going to be having to do our project on all of these different ideas. So each period will have a set of different units, and within those units will be a set of key terms that you will have to have on your project. But it's a little bit more than that. So I just want to kind of show you where we're getting kind of the basic ideas and where we're getting the content part of the project. So we'll go back to tips, tricks, and resources, and we'll go ahead and scroll down. And what we're going to do is we're going to move down to where we start finding some period project information. So here we have a couple of things that we'll kind of walk through today. One is it's going to reload thing. But one is the period project, I think, overview or the ideas. And so we'll go through this and we'll talk about that. The next is the rubric that I'll be using to grade your period projects. And that's pretty much the two things that we're going to need to cover. So only two documents. So let's go ahead and take a look at the ideas first. In this document, I have a number of different ideas that have been created over the last few years with different classes. Um, each year, sometimes students try something unique and different, and I'm able to go ahead and add that into it. So again, this project is not limited to just these ideas. However, this is a good starting off point to think, and it's a little bit easier perhaps to kind of follow somebody else's footsteps regarding their project rather than kind of create your own path. So we're going to go through each one of these and kind of show some examples of them and explain exactly what I'm looking for. The first type of project that we're looking for is like creating your own textbook. So in this class, we'll be kind of doing some textbook notes for our period 1, I think period 1 or period 2 homework. But here's an example of a couple of textbooks that were created. Now, in both these cases, they use Google Slides. And what you're able to do is up on the very top, you can actually change your page. It's under page setup right here. And in this case, the student chose the 8.5 by 11. So kind of making it look like more like a book. And then the second slide has an actual usable table of contents. It's kind of like a electronic table of contents as I'm able to quickly move from one place to another. You'll notice that when you move into the actual part of the textbook, there's some titles, there are subtitles, subsections, there's key terms. And in this case, one concern that I would have kind of grading this is that there aren't any examples of historical thinking skills. Remember that the three most important historical thinking skills are causation, comparison, and continuity change over time. We kind of discussed that in a couple of screencasts regarding this course and the exam and how now they're using those historical thinking skills. So again, this kind of approaches the class like a flashcard where, hey, here's the key term and here's some information. We want to be a little bit more specific and clear on what historical thinking skill we're going to be using. So if we were to look at another example, and obviously, usually the most recent examples are kind of like the strongest. But if we were to look at this student's example, you'll notice that you'll start seeing a little bit more better focus towards causes and effects. So this student's doing causation on this skill, on that key term. Looks like maybe causation again. This is a little bit more of a description. Law of causes, law of effects. You would see occasionally like some comparisons. Like this would be a good one right here, kind of comparing the three different ones. I like the students' use of colors here. And I like kind of how she added so many graphic organizers, but you don't need to have these kind of squares or graphic organizers. You could approach it just like this and say, what were the causes and the effects of the railroads? And right here would be the causes and the effects. So this is our first period project idea. It's a textbook. You can do this multiple ways, but the most common way that I've seen is students actually create a Google Slides and create it from there. Another thing is the cartoon history of the United States. There's an example book of this. So this is actually for any of those individuals that are actually like cartoonists themselves, or maybe you're an artist, and that's how you kind of want to express your thought. If you were to look inside here and you go down here, you can look in. It's kind of interesting, like how they approach. So kind of a cool way to approach history through cartoon history, through cartoons. Excuse me. There's another student that was able to actually find a online video creator, and she created multiple videos, which you guys can see here. And this video is discussing, all these individuals and how they're going through. I believe this is period 3, so probably parts of the American Revolution. Another really cool thing is perhaps you want to be a lecturer. This is one of those, in my opinion, difficult type of projects. The type of projects that when we talk about when we talk about the key terms, the student would only have to do the bolded key terms, because in this case, you're actually creating like probably anywhere from a 25 to 30-minute video. And you need to be able to edit with images and text and, create a script. It takes a lot of time in just going through this process. I've created a few videos myself, so I know that time that's taken. So these students, which were really, really cool, were able to create these kind of like short videos that were loaded to YouTube that would cover the entire period. So here we have one from Lawrence, and she kind of goes through it and discusses it and describes it and
Hello,
uses
APUSHers.
kind of
Today's video is on
Google
period 5
Slides
for
and
me,
multiple other things. So I'll
right
kind of
over
speak
here
over it.
in the
And here
middle.
she's actually lecturing the
A
whole
lot
entire
worse.
period
And
using,
what happens is that
maps, using,
Destiny
um,
stretched their forces too thin
obviously, we're
because they
using
tried something out.
PowerPoint there. So a lot of different opportunities. These are two actual professional examples. We know Tom Ritchie and Hit Hughes History. So these are kind of two cool YouTube lecturers that actually help students pass the course. So you can base it off of them. I've seen students in the past kind of use a little bit more of the crash course US history style, which has a lot of humor in there. It's a little bit more fast paced. So, but you probably want to have like definitely some video editing type of capabilities, probably a little introduction to the AME pathway, or a want to kind of focus on those type of skills. Another cool one I see students use a lot is actually Google My Maps. So all these links on the right-hand side too, by the way, you can actually link to, and that will give you a resource. So this is actually how you can actually create your own My Maps through Google. And so you can create a map. I guess that's no longer there. I apologize. But you can create a map, and on these maps that get created, you can actually create your own icons. And so I will try to see if I have any of them where I edited things. Yeah, I didn't. You can create a new map, but basically you can add all these different little icons, and there was ways in which students could actually change these icons to show like skull and crossbones, or a pen or a pencil or a school building. So you can actually change these icons and create different things, create different polygons, edit a bunch of items. So fortunately, I'm not going to go through that right now. I wish that 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 example was still working, but unfortunately, the student has probably moved on. The Google account has probably collapsed with it. So hopefully you will be able to create one. And again, through all of these, I'll give you guys some opportunities to come and talk to me, and I'll show you examples in class on exactly how to do it as well. Another one that is used a lot by students are infographics, what I call kind of a giant poster. So this is kind of a cool one on exploration. And you can see how it kind of follows like a mast, and it has a ship and the different parts, and it has a sailor. It has a theme, right? So students have done that. An example of this would be from a student that we had last year. But it just has one for manifest destiny. Again, here's that focus on the historical thinking skills of causation, comparison, continuity change over time, and also contextualization. So you'll see those items in there. Again, you're seeing a lot of causes and effects. It's really easy for most students to do that. I definitely ask you guys to try to take an opportunity to go outside of just causation because that will be tested on there. And so, you can imagine if you're actually writing and creating these projects based off of the skills that you would have be tested in the test. So that's the kind of goal, right? Instead of having these flashcard type of knowledge, we want to kind of focus on the historical thinking skills. So I know quickly here on this one, this is about contextualization, and she's talking about the things that happen prior to and after. And I realize right now that this is early on in the course and that you may be confused about these historical thinking skills and how they'll be implemented into your project. But period 1 and 2 is honestly a little bit of an introduction to this class, and we just kind of slow things down, and we're going to be helping each other out. And whatever project that you'll turn in, most likely you'll get 100%. This is just a trial. But period 3 is really when we want to make sure we kind of have answered all the questions, that we're ready to go for period 1 and 2, and really give our best effort for period 3. So don't be too concerned that you might feel a little overwhelmed right here and right now, a little bit confused. I know that we're teaching not only history, but also these historical thinking skills along with writing. This is an AP level course. It is supposed to be a college level course. There is a lot of information, a lot of skills for us to gather, master, and practice on. But please trust me that eventually, throughout as we begin working ourselves through period 3 and definitely through period 4 and 5, you'll have a very strong understanding of a lot of these skills, including the historical thinking skills. So again, you can see that she definitely used contextualization one more time here, talking about the things that happened before and after. And then we go back to causation. So again, this is one that's been used by a lot of students as well. A lot of different ways in which you can create these posters. If you're a scrapbooker, if you're a person that's really kind of a graphic designer and kind of visually focused, but you're maybe not the best artist, definitely infographics, in my opinion, is a good place for you. Um, you also have these timelines that have been really cool. So the two most famous ones that are used are Satori and the JS Night Lab timeline spreadsheet. This one's a very difficult one. So this is actually the template, and it'll teach you exactly how to use it and how to put it in. And here we have a student example of one. Hopefully it's still going. Looks like it is. But I mean, it's really, really cool. They have like a background. And if you click the next link, it gives you the unit. And then we start going to key terms. Once again, here's contextualization. So he's talking about what the things that happened before, what led up to it, and what were the consequences of things that happened after it. Comparison, right? How they are similar. You can see the word similar here, how they're different here. And this student actually used coding and Google Sheets to actually create this. So this is all student created. She has a similar background, has images for all her different things. And you can go, you can either click these arrows or you can click right here and you can get all this information. So that is another example. So I basically have found most students have come up to me with different ideas, and they usually go into these like 6 different categories. But like I said, there might be a different idea out there that you think is unique. The cartoon history was supposed to be kind of a focus on just kind of handwritten artistry, but you can see that this student actually was able to find one online. So there are multiple different opportunities that you can have for these different projects, but this is basically the 6 kind of examples. As you look through this, obviously these are the name or the type of project. Over here, I give a little description. I give the examples and also these different resources that you can use to achieve the project and achieve what you want. Last thing that we're going to do, we're going to spend a couple more minutes just kind of focusing on the rubric, because that's how you'll be graded in this course. And again, for period 1 and 2, we're going to give you some class time, a little bit of homework time. And if it's not fully complete, it's not the best of your ability, that's a-okay. We're just trying our best to kind of understand exactly what's being asked of us. But definitely starting with period 3, we definitely want to have much stronger stronger period projects. So with that being said, let's take a quick look at the rubric so that you understand how you're going to be graded. There are a total of 5 different categories. So the first category are the key concepts. I would call the key concept those key terms, like what is the information? So this is like, hey, do you have the information for the entire period? Do you have the words American Revolution and slavery and George Washington and French and Indian War? So whatever is on there, that's that. And we'll go through each of these a little bit more focused. Your historical thinking skills, when you express your knowledge of all those key terms that are on the period syllabus, are you expressing them using the different historical thinking skills, or are you just doing the flashcard approach? Okay. Public appeal is basically, hey, how nice is it? How easy it is on the eye. Is it very messy? Is it very cluttered, or is it organized and done in a very kind of nice kind of way that kind of is, I'm going to say again, pleasing to the eye. It's visually pleasing. Engagement navigation is really about how easy is it for me to find information. Again, the goal of these projects at certain levels is to be a study tool for the test. That's why the goal of this class is to have all your homework and all your projects done before the test. Again, your projects I will accept for after the test, but if you do turn it in after the test, it'll be 2 grades off. And the reason being is I really want you to focus on getting these projects done before the test, so it helps you to be successful on the test. But the goal is if you had a question perhaps about, let's see, something that happened in the French and Indian War that you could quickly find using your project, clicking a link, searching on a map, how easy is it for me to identify that there is a that that how easy is it for us to identify the French and Indian War and quickly get to the information to use as a study tool? And lastly, there's going to be a personal reflection in which you will kind of reflect on these 4 different items. So we'll talk about each of these little individually in a second. So I'll get into that. All right, so let's go back to the key concepts. So up on the very top, you see a 5, 6 points or percent incomplete. So anytime it's under about 70% complete, usually I just start giving you the percent that's complete. So let's say it's 70%. I'll just give you a 70. Let's say it's 50% complete. I'll just give you a 5, right? Not 70, but a 7. All right. So a lot of times when students turn in work that is not done up to 70%, I simply will use the percent that is done. All right. I won't even really look at how good it is or how bad it is. I'm just going to give you, okay, well, you got about 70% of the key concepts. Awesome. There it is. If only 5% of them are using historical thinking skills, then I'm going to be knocking this down to like a 5 or much lower. But the goal of each of these obviously is to get a 10 here in blue. The goal is not to get this red. For the key concepts, what most students will have for incomplete is they will not actually do all of the key terms that are on the period syllabuses. So again, as a little reminder, right here, I'm going to focus on period 3 because it definitely is super important. We have all of these different key terms right here: Enlightenment ideals and Continental Congress, popular figures. A student who is unsuccessful, a student who gets incomplete will not cover all of those. Sometimes it's covered, but maybe they're not. It's a lot of copying and pasting. It's a lot of their own information, and also the information that they have is not really relevant. It might be talking about when George Washington lived and died, but not really about his actions, right? So yeah, you're kind of talking about it, but it's not really clear according to what's important to the key concept outline. A student that gets proficient advanced, they do really well. They do all of it. A student here, may miss a couple of have a couple of historical errors, a couple details that don't really fit to the key concept outline and what we're talking about in class. So it's kind of a little like off task, whereas this student will be like 100%. And those are kind of the differences between the key concepts. In other words, do you actually have the information and key terms that I asked you to put on there? Historical thinking skills. Student in here will not even pay attention to the historical thinking skills. They'll just give me basically like Wikipedia definitions. They'll copy and paste and go, okay, here's George Washington. Here's the French and Indian War. Has nothing about causes, has nothing about effects, contextualization, comparison, or continuity change over time. A student here might attempt 70% of the time, 80% of the time, but misses 20% of the time. Over here, a student does it every single time and maybe make 1 or 2 mistakes occasionally here and there. And this is a student that uses it all the time. It's 100% perfect. Public appeal. If yours is incomplete or it probably does not look nice, it's probably not well organized, it's probably confusing for me to grade. You'll get one of these 2 grades here, the yellow and the red. If the student is, if the project is really complete, it's really thorough, there's not a lot of massive errors that are distracting me from being successful in grading it, then you'll probably be moving over here. Engagement and navigation. What I'll be doing is I'll be choosing 5 to 10 key terms and really looking and grading those in detail. Each time they will change. And so if I can quickly find those, and if you're going to do a Google My Map, please come talk to me, because unfortunately that example is not there. But there is a really clever way on Google My Maps to kind of coordinate everything together, make sure that everything's kind of color coded and also kind of organized in your menu bar, so it's easy for me to identify. But like the timeline is obviously real easy for me to identify, because if I want to find something about Indian Removal Act, I just click right here and it comes up, right? So that's kind of the idea of engagement navigation. How quickly is it for me, and how quickly is it for others to identify information if we had a question about it? And lastly, the personal reflection. Sometimes students will just kind of talk about like, hey, I did a really good job, but what they want them to do is, I want you to go through and grade all 4 of these things. So I want you to act like a teacher and say, okay, for the key concepts, I believe I got a 9. And the reason I did a 9 is because I covered like 95% of them. There are about 2 or 3 key terms that I definitely did not cover, but I believe that I should get a 9, and that's the reason why. So I want you to actually grade yourself and give like a thoughtful reflection. So you should be one sentence kind of discussing the grade, and probably about 3 to 4 sentences for each of these to go ahead and reflect upon exactly what you did well, and what you would like to improve on in the future. And there's approximately about 4 different of these. So you're looking at a 12 to 15, sentence reflection discussing that. But in addition to just not only talking about the project and components, I would like you to talk about the process of building it. Like, hey, did you enjoy using the Google My Maps, or using Canva for the infographics, or is it those products not good? Were you able to find a different product? Is this the third time that you've tried to do a certain project, and you're getting frustrated that it's not working out the way it should be, and you're not finding the apps or the resources, so you might want to change it, right? So talk about the process of the project. A majority of your reflection should be about grading it, right? Telling me for these 4 letters A, B, C, and D, right over here on the left-hand side, what is your grade? Why would you give yourself the grade that you did? And then lastly, how does this project actually, what did you learn from it, and how is it going to actually help us be successful on the test? Not only here in the multiple choice test, but also towards the end of the year test here in May, the one done by College Board. How's that going to help you be successful there? So, it's super cool. A lot of these projects, the students will have images that will show up on the test. Again, if they're using the historical thinking skills, literally you're creating questions and answers that you may see on the test, because again, the test will ask you about the causes and effects of something, the similarities and differences of something, or for social groups, you're using the continuity and the change over time about something. And not only is it just social groups, it's going to be like views of the United States. It could be political views, political feelings. But I really want to make sure that this project is helping us towards our goal, and our goal is to be successful in this class and successful in the tests. So that's pretty much the period project. These things are due, they're about 15% of your grade. It's a large portion of your grade. They're due before each test, multiple choice test. The reason being because we want you to be prepared before. I know I'm being very repetitive. I'm being repetitive on purpose to make sure that you understand why we're doing what we're doing. And if you do turn these in later, they will get a 2-grade penalty. But once again, the 2 documents are really going to help you be successful for this is under tips, tricks, and resources. And it's going to do the load thing a couple times on me. But if you were to scroll down, the period project ideas and the period project rubric, right? These 2 documents, again, it's going to probably load it up here. But this one. So, right, the period project ideas and the period project rubric, which we just covered. And I'll probably be embedding these videos down here, or probably up on the top here for a quick introduction for you as well. All right, pushers. Well, until the next time, we'll see you later. Take care.